Welcome back to OxfordBusinessTutor.com, and I'm George Black-Nicholas, and I'm here today to talk about the break-even level of output. Okay, in order to find the break-even level of output, you're going to have to know something about fixed costs and variable costs. So if you haven't done that already, check out my previous video in which I go into a little bit more detail about fixed and variable costs. Then come back, and then this will kind of make a bit more sense. Okay, break-even. What is break-even? Well, break-even is when total revenue equals total costs. So you go beyond break-even, that's when you start making profit, okay? Because then total revenue would be greater than total costs. So we like to know what the break-even level of output is, because any level of output beyond that, selling a level of output beyond that would mean that we start to make profit. So this is this is to know when we're about to make profit. So for this, you're going to need a graph, okay? And also you're going to have to remember the things about fixed and variable costs, like I say. So let's start our graph, okay? Two axes. Let's put output on the x-axis over here, and then we'll put costs over here on the y-axis. Now let's think about our variable costs. If you remember, let's start with our fixed costs actually. If you remember what our fixed costs are, these are the costs that don't change with output. So things like debt repayments, things like rentals on factory space, things like, I don't know, utilities perhaps, okay? It doesn't matter how much output we make, the cost is going to stay the same. So if I have £100 of debt repayments and rentals and utility bills, even if I don't make any output, that's not going to change if I make 1 unit, 2 units. It doesn't change if I make 100 units. It's going to stay the same. What does that mean? It means that that line is perfectly horizontal. I'm not sure that I've drawn it perfect horizontal, but it's meant to be. A gradient of 0. The fixed cost doesn't change. The fixed cost stays at 100 no matter what the level of output. That's the whole idea of what a fixed cost is. Now let's talk about the variable cost, okay? The variable cost is the one that does change with output. So as I make an increasing level of output, the variable cost will start to increase. The example I gave in my last video was about a jeans company. So if I'm a jeans company, if I'm making jeans, things I've got to buy in, zippers, buttons, denim, and clearly if I make more jeans, or the more jeans I make, I've got to buy in more zippers, buttons, and denim, okay? So what's the variable cost curve look like? Well, at 0 levels of output, I don't have any expenditure on things like buttons and zippers and denim because I'm not making any jeans. But once I make the first unit, suddenly there's going to be a cost to that. And with the second unit, there's going to be a greater cost with that. And as we said, variable costs are the ones that change with output. As I increase my output, my variable costs have got to increase as well. And that gives us a nice positive correlation. Let's label it VC for variable cost. So we've got a perfectly horizontal fixed cost curve. We've got an upward sloping variable cost curve. Now we've got total costs. Total costs are just fixed costs added to variable costs. Yeah, that's the formula. Let's think about that in terms of a graphical relationship. Well, again, thinking about the output, if I'm making 0 output, then the only cost I have is a fixed one. I don't have a variable one. So the total cost is going to start at that point there. Then let's add a couple of more units. Let's make some units, okay? So this unit here, let's call it, 2 units here. That's going to cost me that much in variable costs. It's going to cost me that much in fixed costs. So I'm adding that distance to that distance, which gives me that distance there. Do the same thing, for 4 units of output now. 4 units of output has that much variable cost. It's got that much fixed cost. So I'm adding that to that, which is going to give me something like that. That's giving me 3 points. That's enough to draw a line. What do you notice? Hey, look, the total cost curve is a parallel shift upwards of the variable cost curve starting at the same point as the fixed cost. Okay, it's the same gradient, it's essentially the same line, it's just been moved upwards. So there is the graphical relationship of our cost curves. The thing to do now then is to add in a revenue curve. So revenue is the money I make by selling output. And assuming that all the products I sell have an average price, as I sell output, I'm going to be making more total revenue. Now, we've always said in order to make profit, basically your price has to be bigger than the variable cost. If it isn't, then you're not adding value and you don't have a business that in any way can be successful. So your price is going to have to be bigger than your variable cost. So I know when I sell 2 units, it's going to be bigger than my variable cost. And when I make the 4 units, that's going to be selling each one for a bigger price than the variable cost. So the total revenue I get in must be doing that. So my total revenue curve is going to be upward sloping but at a steeper gradient than the variable cost curve because my average price is bigger than my average variable cost, or my bigger unit cost per unit. And so this is what my total revenue curve is doing. My total revenue curve is also upward sloping. I meant to do it as a straight line. There's no real reason to have it curved there. Okay, but it's steeper than the variable cost because, as I say, the price has always got to be bigger than the variable cost, which means as you keep adding it together, the difference between the variable cost and the total revenue gets wider and wider and wider. So it kind of looks like a little bit like a pivot shift. Now, what's the point at which we break even? Break even is where the total revenue equals the total cost. It's there. It's the intersection between the two lines. And if we read off down here, I don't know, judging by the scale I was using earlier, that's probably something approaching 7 units of output. That basically means that until I've made and sold 7 units of output, I haven't made any money. I haven't made any profit. I've made revenue, but my revenue is still paying off my total cost. I'm basically paying off my fixed costs. When I get to 7, my total revenue equals my total costs. And when I get past 7, when I start making and selling the 8th and 9th and 10th units, my total revenue is bigger than my total costs. And that's where I'm going to start making profit. So my break-even level of output is where TC equals TR. I'm pointing at the wrong ones. Where TC equals TR. All the other way around, TR equals TC. And that is on the graph here, it's 7 units. Depending on the gradients of your lines, it's going to be different units. There is a formula for working this out. The break-even point is calculated by dividing the fixed costs, or the total fixed costs, by the price minus the variable cost. The variable cost per unit, I guess. Not this total variable cost curve that we've got there. So if you're looking for an easy solution, that's the formula that you need to plug into your calculator. And I'm sure in any business studies exam, you'll probably get the numbers that allow you to plug that formula into your calculator and get the result. But if you need to do it graphically, and remember your business studies exam even at A-level can ask you to do that, to draw a graph and plot it, then this is the graph that you need to be doing. Perfectly horizontal fixed cost curve, upward sloping variable cost, upward shift, upward parallel shift for your total cost curve, and then the total revenue curve, because your price is going to be greater than your variable cost per unit, it's also going to be upward sloping, but at a steeper rate, at a higher rate than the variable cost curve. So invariably it's going to separate from the variable cost curve, and eventually it's going to intersect with the total cost curve, and the point of intersection is the break-even level of output. Any output sold after that, that's going to generate you profit. That is profit. Right, that's it. Thank you very much for watching. I am thebusinesssstudiestutor.com, and good luck.